What's up, gang?
Hey guys, happy Friday night. It's Lori with Pappy, and our special guest tonight is John Crombar.
Live in the flesh.
Yes,
Thank you for the invite.
we are going to be talking 12-step and also touching on pause. Hope everybody had a great Friday. We did, and waiting for the weather to kind of even out. It's kind of sucko today, but hope everybody's doing well. If you have any questions, if you have something that you want to discuss, please add it into the comments. We will try and make sure we keep an eye on that and answer any questions or concerns you may have. We will offer our suggestions through our experience, offer you some hope with that. We are not going to be discussing politics.
Damn it.
Nor religion. Totally hot topics that will just get us fighting. If you guys have a question and you want to be anonymous, you can give us a call at 267-737-8031. You can tell us that your name is Joe Bag of Donuts. If you have a comment you want to put in, remember anybody that is on Facebook can see that comment. So you can also text 267-737-8031 to make an anonymous comment. And here we go. John Crombar.
And I love that picture of John out there. Was that taken at your first confirmation?
No, that was taken at our at Livingrens holiday party.
Hence the wreath in the background. Gotcha.
Yeah, I think that's what that was for. But I'm not 100%.
Very, very youthful shot of you.
Actually, there was someone else in that picture that is no longer in
Cropped
there.
down?
Yes. My cropping skills are not as good as Richard's, but they're not bad.
Yeah, you don't want to get on his bad side. He can.
No. Oh, he can
You'll never
add some
know what-
stuff to your pictures, trust me.
I said I love this is what I like about chats and groups like these where you can interact and back and forth. I dig banter. I love giving it just as much as I can take it, and it opens up a dialogue instead of like because I can talk about myself or like whatever what I like till I'm blue in the face, but when it's back and forth, there's a little bit more to it. You know? So.
And I see Kathy, I can't see, so. Kathy Lowbridge,
Kathy L. Kathy
Ka-
Love.
Kathy Love.
Christy.
No, Kathy L. The other John, my favorite. I taught you everything you know.
That's Christy there.
Christy said.
Oh, Christy, I'm
cropped
sorry.
Out the Elvis impersonator, and yes, we
Well,
did
thank you,
have
thank you very much.
an Elvis impersonator come and do part of the show that year. It was actually really awesome. That's how white trash I can really get. I love Elvis impersonators, and usually the more weird and creepy, the better. But like it was actually really kind of cool, and but I also see Mr. Larry's there. So Larry's
Larry
one of
is
our
a
great
celebrity
alumni.
status on the show.
Yes.
Very forward to Larry. Always got something great to offer.
I'm hoping he can get a babysitter on the 20 or an uncle sitter on the 23rd. So hopefully he can join us on the 23rd. Trying to get somebody on the 30th to talk recovery houses. So if I'm trying, but she's having a tough time getting here. So looking for anybody that can talk recovery houses for us.
Probably do that, but I won't say it here, so because I don't want to put anyone on the spot.
Right. I hear you. I hear you, brother. I hear you, brother.
So as we were all talking the other week and all, the tall 12-step program came up, as a means of recovery, and we talked about how a lot of the 12-step people don't agree with maintenance with Matt, type treatment. I mean, they like the old school 12-step program, and all. They think it's a better system and all. We were talking about people are very passionate about the 12-step program.
Okay.
And that's just, the background on what we were talking about, and we wanted to hear the other side because we stay neutral on it all here. I mean, with the show, we can't favor one over the other, just to keep it even playing field to our clients or our listeners, viewers.
Do you want me to tell you about my 12-step experiences?
Well, yeah, you can talk about it.
You can say whatever
you
you want.
about
All right,
it.
well,
I'll just say,
You can start from embryo to now.
you can say how
Okay.
how you feel
So-
about it as opposed to other types. I mean, whatever.
Well, I tell you what. Well, first, you did say about how the discussion came about regarding 12-step and MAT, etc. And I think what the difference there is that the 12-step experience for most of us is based out of abstinence, and and not using of anything. But I also think that there's what we talk about, many forms of recovery, or many, however your journey starts or whatever, and that is someone in recovery or are they not in recovery? Are they sober? Are they not sober? Are they clean? Are they not clean? Right? Can be heavily debated upon. And for me, and this is only for me, and from my experience, is that abstinence was the only solution, because I tried, at one point, I was just going to drink gin. At one point, I was just going to drink beer. At one point, I was just going to shoot cocaine. I was going to be all these different things that, whatever it was, I was, Suboxone, heroin, you name it, all these different. And the only thing I found for me that worked was to be completely abstinent. But how I came up upon that wasn't just through experience through a treatment facility or through or from myself going to meetings. For me, it came that I grew up in an AA Al-Anon household, and I don't blame any part of my life. I made all the bad decisions. I still make really bad decisions, but I made them all myself. But I can remember very distinctly is going to see my father because he was sick. And that's when I was about 5 years old, and we went to this place and it's no longer there. It's a Grant Milner. It was called Riverside House, and that's when I knew about what alcoholism was or is. And going through school, I was really a late bloomer. There was plenty of opportunities, but I didn't really partake until maybe I was 14-ish, maybe 15. And I drank a couple times, and what I remember very distinctly is we were 14 and 15 years old, and 4 of us went down the shore, and our parents were okay with this, right? Today, I don't think kids would be able to do this, but we were okay. Our parents let us, and some hotel down the shore let these 14, 15-year-olds rent a hotel room, and we stayed for the weekend, and we paid some carny on the boardwalk to get us 12 packs of Meisterbrow. And the 3 friends I went down with got a 12-pack, and I got a 12-pack. And I don't know how many I drank or whatever, but I definitely know that I was wasted out of my brain, and some kind of whatever went down to the next day I heard about, this is what you did. And by the time we got home, which means that the people I was there with, of course, told their parents and my brother and all this, that this is what John did. So what it told me is hindsight, right from the gate, the way I drink is alcoholically.
Rose up and
But
disappeared.
eventually, I go through high school, no direction, and then I leave high school and I start experimenting with different things. And I remember we did some interventions on a family member, and then I remember hearing my aunt's voice one day at 7:00 in the morning, and I knew that I knew kind of what was going on. And I went to treatment. I don't know, I was pretty young, and I don't know, I didn't pay attention to it. I don't know. It was really just I guess I just did it just to keep my family happy or whatever. But and so I did that a couple times, and then when I was 23 years old, I don't know. I just I asked for help. In all honesty, I used to like angel dust, and so I came out of a blackout in Father Okonski's office. I guess I was confessing my sins and completely out of my brain. And he wanted me to go away to a long-term treatment facility. And I was like, there's no way. And like a few months later, like I had enough, and I went to long-term treatment when I was young, and it was very different for me. Like righty. So I talk about this all the time. I was 23 years old. I go into rehab. It was about a mile from my parents' house, and I had never done laundry. And my mom would come to the rehab and pick up my laundry and take it home, wash it dry. I'm still a mama's boy, by the way. Mm-hmm. And I am the baby. I'm the youngest.
You still iron your socks, John?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Right? But like she would come and do my laundry and bring it back. And my counselor was like, no way. Because at 23 years old, I was like a baby. I was like a child. Like I really, I didn't know how to function in the quote unquote real world. And but I ended up, I stayed there, and I lived there for a few years, and I went to meetings and I did all that kind of stuff, and I did good for a number of years, and I ended up getting hurt at work, and I get a doctor's prescription. Now in that meantime, anyone that was a friend, I'd take them to meetings, if this, that, and but eventually I found myself without a solution, without a network, or without anyone, and I get hurt, and there's this prescription, and the fellowship that I go to now, we use.
Eric, angel dust is spirit leaves infused with embalming fluid. Is what it actually is. If I see you're asking, I don't know if
I'll
you guys
that.
are familiar with that out there.
Eric, angel dust, yes, PCP. It was in my neighborhood. What do you call it, Pap? It's the what?
The red brick trailer park.
I grew up in a red brick trailer park called Parkwood, right? And which was really big there when I was younger. And I don't know. It was just kind of, I don't know why I gravitated towards it, but
It was big for the 70s, the late 70s also.
yeah, and which was my mindset has always been like I'm 48, and my mindset has always been with older people like Pat, right?
59.
And really, but I emulated what my siblings and their friends did. Like I followed them around, and I guess that's what they did when I was younger. But yeah, so I'm clean, and then I'm not, and I struggled for a few years in and out of treatment, and I don't know. Eventually, for me, I go to this fellowship, and we colloquially we call it the Big Book, and we use this book to go through the steps and some other things, and in there it talks about crossing these invisible lines, the visible lines in the sand. And if you would have if you would have had my future history in front of me and said, this is what you're going to do, I would have told you were absolutely insane. And I had zero intentions on doing any of that. I had zero, and here this is where it led me. And for me, it always, in that same book, it talks about the phenomenon of craving, and no matter what I do, however I use leads me back to cocaine in some kind of way, shape, or form, and that's what happened. And when it comes to that, when I tell you all bets are off, I will give away career jobs, my car, everything I own for another one, I've done it, and I struggled for many years in and out into treatment, and how I ended up in treatment the last time was because the Benson police didn't think it was a good idea to be dusted behind an 18-wheeler because I was a truck driver. I was a teamster for many years, and I got a DOT violation, and I go through treatment again, and I leave, and I start doing all these different things, I do every time I go into rehab, and so I leave, and so I start going to meetings like I always do. And I went to this specific meeting, usually Friday night on 9 o'clock. I go to the same meeting, and Lori had asked me to come here many times, and I'm like, that's my home group, But I see she was here earlier, but I went to this meeting at Friday night at 9 o'clock only because they had free pizza, and And I felt a vibe that was always supposed to be the vibe. I always thought a 12-step meeting or fellowship was supposed to bring to you. And I felt it there. And when I came back the next week, this woman named Donna remembered my name. And like from that point on, I thought like, this is what it's supposed to be. This is what I've always been looking for. The way I've been living the past few years is not working. Let me just do something different. And so what I started doing is I started doing the things they told me to do. And like we hear it all the time: get a sponsor, do the steps, get a home group, etc. So that's exactly what I did, right? So actually, the first guy who was my sponsor, I didn't ask him. They told me that this guy was going to be my sponsor. I said, okay. And, and I joined like every group of that fellowship as a home group. Like at one point, it was like 5 or 6 days during the week. And I started like doing some step work. And I guess the difference of it was like I wasn't telling you I was doing step work. I actually started doing it, sort of, writing it down and writing a fourth step and seeking all these different things. And I worked through a few different sponsors over points of time, but like, I started having experiences like, when we, when step 4, like first off, step 3, I keep it a real simple program today. Like I really try to stay in steps 1, 2, and 3, just to keep it real easy because like, sorry for anyone that lives in Jersey, but if you got a Jersey tag and you don't use your turn signal, like I'm ready to jump out my window at you, right? And so
I think they got 13 steps in Jersey myself.
No, I don't like that. That's nowhere for the 13th step. But what started to happen is like someone said it at a meeting that really made sense in the way they said it, and the mindset that I had was that no matter what comes at me, good, bad, or indifferent, a drink or a drug is not an option. And like ever since then, like that's what my mindset has been, and so I keep that in steps 1, 2, and 3 on a regular basis. That like if I follow. I had this really great guy who's no longer with us. His name is Bruce Kay, and he was my sponsor at one point. And he asked me if I believed that it worked for him, and I said yes, it did. And if it worked for him, this process could work for me. So I just started doing the process and not really putting much thought behind it. And I wrote down a 4 step, and we went to the Bristol Wharf. And I did a 5th step, and I think he was falling asleep. Like I thought all this stuff was like really mind altering or changing, and but it really wasn't. And then I got to take a look at like some of the things that I do wrong on a regular basis and try to work all of them on, in step 6 and 7, and 8 and 9. I got to make a list of these people these things that affect me that I've heard and trying to make amends on a regular process. And 10, 11, 12, I have the opportunity to go and help others, and on a regular basis, take a look at myself and say like, yeah, this is what you need to do to adjust. And I don't know, like for many years, I complicated the living hell out of a mouse fart, and it didn't need to be all that. It just could be this simple thing of like, all right, well, if I do these things, I have a better chance. And through that process, like, I ended up, touching back with some people in my life that were from my past that were like good people. Like, there's some people that were like true friends that I left behind for the things I wanted to do. And like, I don't, some of them are friends today, some of them they're never going to be happy with how it went down, whatever. As long as I could do is try to make it happen. And but as far as like helping other people is really what it came down to, being a service to others. And this guy Chris says it all the time, is like being of maximum service to others, and that's what it's come down to. And I try to do that on a regular basis. Like we could debate and discuss each step on like a super like in-depth level, but really like for someone like me who really like enjoys complicating things, it had to be changed in a different way to just work it really simple, and you can actually work it in your life versus debating it. And that was a big part of my recovery, was instead of debating it and discussing it and all that, it came down to like actually doing it. And since I've done that, and since I've practiced that thing of like no drinking and no drugging whatsoever, no matter what. You know, I did the steps. My life started to get better, and things started to happen. And the side effect that I've had from it all was continued sobriety. And that's my 12-step experience in a
Awesome.
nutshell.
Now,
You
did
know.
you find it more comfortable, like hanging out, what they refer to as the older heads? You know what I mean? Did you find comfort in it? Because I know somebody very close to me who that really rang true for him. I mean, because they tried a lot of different groups, and when he got involved with with the older heads in there, the older guys, and they kind of take you under their wing.
I started to attend a different fellowship than I was than I used to, and one that's not as big as the major ones. And reason being is, one, like I had with that I had an opportunity to, like, all right, really I didn't have an opportunity. They kind of forced me to make sure I got like fully involved. Okay. And the ones that like forced me to get fully involved were some of these old timers that I followed them around like a puppy, honestly. You know, there was times when these guys had, 15, 16, 17 years. And I'm there with like 3 months and 6 months and just like standing in a circle, not really knowing what they're talking about, but I just put myself in this situation. Yeah, I followed them around. But there was also people that were younger, my age, and I really wasn't younger. I got sober, when I was 38. And I can cut it up with the best of them out front, It was a little bit of both, but the ones that really changed my life were old timers.
Now, John, Eric asks, John, at what time during your step process did you feel you began to recover?
Well, I'm going to say that I went through all 12 steps in just a little more than a year. But let me read that question again. To begin to recover, I can say this, that I feel I was in early recovery for like my first 3 years. I started noticing things being different probably as I was getting around step 10-ish. That's when I started making some other decisions, like I went back to school and some other things. And that was just like a little over a year. But that was right around when I was working on step 10. And I guess a lot of it really had to do with the step 9 process of going and making amends. It was very, I don't want to say humiliating, but, at some points it was, honestly. But I learned a lot of humility through that. And living amends today is the biggest part, of my amends process. But right around then. But really, honestly, we talk about it a lot, and like a lot of times I don't say addict or alcoholic. I say a person in long-term recovery, right? And I think it really comes that, like, when I learned that, they talked about like, well, what is long-term recovery? And they said it was 2 years or more, and that for me it really was like I really didn't think clearly fully until a 3 year mark, and which is a lot. Really, I think it was a long time. I think that things were better, yeah, but were they right? No, and it is what it is, and honestly, I'm glad it happened that way, because if it would happen a different way, I may not be here.
Now, John, Meredith.
I do have fire insurance.
Okay, she wanted to make sure you have fire
All right.
insurance.
Can I explain this joke? Okay.
Please do, because
So I use this constantly all the time, right? So when I'm dealing with patients at work, like so I run the store at work and like other things, and when someone's complaining about something or like something's missing or whatever, I ask them if they have fire insurance, and their response back is, "What do you need fire insurance for?" Because that's what I tell them, because you're burnt, right? Now, but how I first heard of this joke, and I'm really going to date myself, is that I was copping at Front and Lehigh back before Operation Sunrise. It was like 1995, and I handed the money through the window, and it was in that Chevette. I drove a '76 Chevette. It was the biggest POS I ever had, and but I handed the money through the window, and the dude's like, "You got fire insurance?" I'm like, "What the F do I need fire insurance for?" He's like, "Because you just got burnt, homie." And he pulls up his shirt, and he's got a gun in there, and I'm like, "Okay, well, what else am I gonna do?" And so I got robbed, in North Philadelphia. And that's what the joke the guy hit me with. And so I've been hitting other people with it for
You
the
got
past
fired.
20 years. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You got robbed in North Philly?
Yeah, shocker.
Get the hell out of here.
But yeah, so that's where it comes from. And I've been using it weekly ever since.
Well, at least you got a good line out of it anyway. It wasn't a total loss.
Honestly, like, my addiction took me to places, the places I always say I would never go, with people I always say I would never hang out with, doing things I always say I would never do. And, but like, I haven't done those things in a little over 10 years. And it's only because of the recovery process and going through the 12 steps and following. Really, the main thing is following the suggestions of the people that came before me. That's the only reason my life is any different.
Awesome.
Now, and Bob, yes, he is playing with the flux capacitor.
It's another joke, too. I use that constantly.
That was my job. The store. How is your profit? I don't know what that means. I'm sure that's another one of your.
No, that's about the store. How's the store
Okay.
doing? It's doing good.
Okay, good.
I'm in charge of it, so it's going very well.
Okay. If John is in charge of it, yes, he's on top of it.
And
And
ladies all know, we do a lot with John. John's a great guy. I mean, he's like always involved in everything. You're like a super inspiration, man, to them.
Actually, I think I'm going to flip that back on you guys. Every time I go to like a recovery event, you guys are there. And I wish I could be that involved. Yeah, I do a lot of it because of work and whatnot, but like, I mean, I went back to school after I got sober because like every time I would go in rehab, they would ask you if you wanted to go like further education. And the last time I went, they didn't ask me. So I was like, why didn't you ask me? Because I want to go. Because I would go through rehab and go to meetings and tell you I was going to do all those things, but I never did it. But I went back to school after a year of being sober, a little over a year, and I've been going ever since. My father did that. My father he went part time and became an accountant, and so I went to school part time. Totally regret doing it part time. I wish I would have went full time because I'm really burned out. But like, but it was one of the things I always said I was going to do, and I wanted to make sure that happened. And a lot of it really wasn't career driven. It was more like I wanted my mother to see one of us get a degree, and but in that, like, I'm like a super irresponsible person. So when it comes to like work related stuff, I'm like, I might be a little rigid, but that's because I have such a tendency to not be and let things go by the wayside. And so like when it comes to the store, I just try to do the best I can with things. But with showing up at recovery events, like, I have so much time to go. I'm also a caregiver now, for my mother. She stopped driving during COVID, so I have a lot going on with that. So trying to make it to things like Ben Salem on a Friday night. You know what I mean? It's like, it's 10 minutes away, but sometimes like I just want to watch Jeopardy. Or like whatever it may be, but like you'll rarely ever find me out around 7:00 during the week. So that's Jeopardy.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, all right.
I'm surprised. No, I'm not.
But I will say this though is that sometimes it wasn't easy. I mean, sometimes it was super easy, and we've all heard the saying inside the rooms is that it might be hard, but it's absolutely worth it. And for anyone else, anyone that's just coming around, like, don't give up on yourself. And like today, it's like it comes down to like. The smile that we see on our families' faces that when they achieve things. My niece found her cat today after a month, right? Like to be, even though she lives down in Delaware, but it was like still cool to see it happen, right? to just text her and say like, hey, like I'm really glad, like whatever. I didn't do those things when I was drinking. You know, I did none of that. And just to be a part of other people's lives, the smile and the warm feelings you get from that, there's no bag or bottle that I found that's come anywhere near that. So for me, it's become real easy. But it's not giving up on ourselves.
Right.
I brought that up quite a few times, you know, when you're like really deep in your addiction, you lack things like empathy and guilt like that because like, and I don't like to sound like a broken record, but there's a perfect example. Your brain doesn't foster those emotions because you're not producing the chemicals that help you foster those emotions. So like you never really would have never cared about your niece's cat. Yeah, too
Right.
bad. Yeah, your cat's not there, but now you're a different person. Like, and you just proved my point right there. I was like,
It's the way I've heard it, and this is just I've heard this from working in treatment, is that a drink or a drug being behind every decision, and it may not be the decision to do this or do that, but it's going to make it easier for me to do that. And I realize now that that's where like a lot of the decisions I was making in life at one point, that's what they were based upon. Like, it may not have been like, hey, am I gonna, you know, are we gonna do this or that? But it was always leading to that, and like it was always behind it. You know, it may not have been very clear, or I may not even realize it. And I also think that, for me anyway, there was a lot of points in time when I was not causing trouble, but like all the troubles that were in my life. And that's step one in a nutshell, right? When we talk about step one being, you know, admitted we were powerless over whatever, that our lives have become unmanageable, right? I think that I can admit to it because I can go to a doctor and when he writes me a script for Perk 5, I'm like, dude, they ain't gonna do nothing. I'm a drug addict.
right.
You know, I had no problem doing that, right? And when I just stole your money or whatever, you know, I just smoked all your rocks. I got, oh, you dude, I'm a drug addict, right? But really recognizing unmanageability, like how I ended up into treatment was, you know, Benson Police and some dude that lived around the corner from me, and I blamed them for a good year or so, and I'm like, it was my own, you know, it was my, no one forced me to smoke PCP in Ward Trucking parking lot. You know what I mean? Like, and then go in there and try to tell them I was sick. Like I was out of my mind. And you could first off, look, you might not be able to see it now, but you couldn't miss I was a crackhead from down the block, right? And like for me to walk in there super high out of my gourd, be like, oh, I'm sick, and I probably couldn't even talk, right? And then blaming Ward Trucking, right? And one of the coolest amends that I made was in Staples on Street Road, and I ran into the guy who fired me, right? And I was like, oh, here we go, right? You know, and
You weren't by the letter openers, were you? Oh, sorry.
and I got to talk to this guy for a few minutes, and I said, look, and I don't know if he remembered my name or not at all, but he did take my information. I said, look, I apologize, you know, can I make it right? And he called me the next day and asked me if they could use my story in Ward Trucking's HR newsletter, and I was like, yeah, definitely, yeah. Right? And but what it goes to tell me is that like you know, all like, well, especially from the family side, the families are used to our behavior. Like all this stuff that we're doing, it's not so much, you know, yeah, okay, we're using drugs or we're drinking too much, right? But it's we're stealing this and we're doing that and we're doing all this like crazy cuckoo behavior that surrounds it, right? And they see all of that. And for those of us in recovery, we don't realize it, but our families and our loved ones and the people around us see it, how we change over time. But like, and they get, oh my God, and to us it's like it's another day. But really, we don't realize that like the last time Aunt whoever may have seen us, we were like, you know, shit dripping out of our nose and like all this other craziness, and that just, you know, all that stuff just goes to show that, you know, that following through with it, you know, especially when we didn't want to, and I know you had pause in there too, and which, you know, post-acute withdrawal syndrome, and the same kind of thing that works for that is the same thing that works for long-term sobriety, and that really just comes down to like not giving up, like because there's all these points in time that we want to just get out of ourselves. We want things that we don't want to feel this pain. We don't, whatever it may be, and those, those moments of time which, which may seem like they're going so long, but it might only be 5 minutes at a shot, and not giving up during that time is, what kind of like changes us and at least in long-term sobriety.
Now, Eric mentions humility smashes the hell out of ego as intended. He also states reunion with a lost fur baby is one of the greatest highs ever.
And you know what, Eric, regarding humility, and something else I was taught from a lot of those old timers was that I can't just talk about humility, or I can't just, like, humility is something you're not supposed to talk about at all, right?
Right.
But there's many other different things that you can't just talk about them. You have to have an active solution. There's got to be some kind of physical behavior behind it, right? And that for me to be truly humble, right, means I have to do actions of humility. And I got to go in these different things. And I'm going to tell you how it really came about at one point where I go to meetings on Monday night. The men's bathroom is effing disgusting. And
Can you please watch your language? It's a family show.
And I was complaining about it, and that same guy, Bruce, said, well, here's your opportunity. You can come and clean it. And who was my sponsor. So every other week I showed up, 2 hours before the meeting, and I cleaned the men's and women's bathroom. And, not something I really wanted to do, but I did it because, you know what, it had to be done. So if I'm going to be truly, and I didn't go and I'm cleaning the bathroom. Like, I didn't want anyone knowing, right? But still, I went and I did it, right?
The jelly donut machines and all of it.
And but like it's things like that that really become a thing. And really at one point I used to drive around with a meeting list, and I would staple $1 to it, and the guys that are on the will work for food, I would give it to them. And one of the most spiritual people I've ever met in my life is my uncle, and I was telling him about it, and he gave me such a hard time. And he said, "You're giving that because you're good." I'm born and raised Catholic, but he said, "You're doing that because you're a Christian, and you're not supposed to do all that different stuff. You're judging him with that $1 and stapling that." He's like, "If you're just gonna give him $1, you give it to him because that's what you're supposed to be doing, and everything else that comes with it, you just you don't worry about it." And it kind of really changed. I was like, wow, I didn't even think about it in those kind of terms, right? Yeah. But here, I really kind of think he was right with it, and so it told me that I could do these different things. I don't have to blast it all over the place. I can help these people when I can, but also not be judgmental about it. And honestly, I kind of had to do it for school, but I've been volunteering on Monday nights for seniors, and
Are you still reading to the blind nuns?
No, I've been trying to find a thing where you read the cats. I would love to do that. So
I think we can send you
kidding,
we
right?
have a site we can send it, can't we, about cats? It'll be showing up on your phone
right?
shortly.
If anyone knows about where you can read the cats, volunteer to read the cats, definitely send it in. I'm in for it. But it really really feels good to be like an active member of society, because at one point I was not. And which is, I came around to the rooms because, like some of the literature says, because I have a terrifying drug habit. And that's why I showed up. But it's given me so much more, and given me many, many more opportunities that were not even thoughts of, right? Something like this. And as part of the Live Green Council, you guys have helped out with a lot of different things. And to stand in front of we do a school with all those kids and all the, and go and talk in front of groups, which is, not part of, no one ever said, you're going to be able to do public speaking or do this or do that, or you're going to be able to, have these other opportunities, but they came about. And I wish I wish I could just put my hand on someone's back and have them, have what I was going through there, or find something out there. but really it's like you have to travel the path. You have to walk along it to be able to really know it. And I'm truly blessed today that the opportunities that I've been given.
Deborah, she's from our parent group online.
She has two
She
cats
says
you
she
read
has
to?
2 cats you
There you
can
go.
read to.
If you can write a letter that works for Alberta University for volunteering, I will do that.
When you started your journey with the 12 step, what do you think was the most important thing that you got out of it that kept you?
You repeat that?
The most important thing in the 12 step that you got that kept you there?
What was the most important part of the step process?
That kept you there.
That kept me there. Probably within steps 6 and 7. When we talk about our shortcomings and these defects of character, and realizing that because some of my defects they're glaring, and I really like them, honestly. You know what I mean? I realize now that they can. I'm about to say they can be negative. I realize now that they are negative in my life, but these are these things that like my sarcasm or cynicism and many other things that are my defense mechanisms in life, or other things like, in some aspects I can be super cheap, right? I'll spend $200 on a pen, but if I go to McDonald's and it's off by 50 cents, like I'm going to argue that 50 cents, right? Which is just completely asinine. But learning that like some of these things that are a part of my life and how I act and whatnot, that really have this long lasting effect, and that me just going through the step process, it isn't going to change them overnight. That I have to work on these things on a regular basis, constantly take a look at it, constantly say to myself like, hey, like you're really coming on. Like I can be really condescending in some aspects too, and really like paying attention to that and just saying like, and how I kind of like do that is I have like my little checklist on my big book that I currently cannot find. I don't know what I did with it, so I'm gonna have to start with a new one. And there was some mass cards in there that I really did not want to lose, but I had like a little list of like my character defects that I came through with doing step work, and I read them on a regular basis to say like, are you acting this way? Are you coming out of this? And having that regularly, and just trying to be a little more normal from those. Because like for me, I needed someone else to point some of that out, because like I just think I'm hysterical, but I'm a real D, so like you never know. And so
What's a D?
Okay. I probably already cursed and didn't even realize it, but
You
I'm trying my
can.
best not to.
You can curse on this show.
Okay,
This
but-
is not a.
Which is also another defect, because I do it at work, and like it's a no at work, and I do it. I'm like, oh man, I just
Just don't take the
like,
Lord's name in vain. There's no religion allowed on the show. She sets a high bar here.
Eric said.
Are we sure we don't want to talk about politics?
I'm going to talk about a
positive.
$200 pen. Now, a $200 pen, is that a traditional ink pen? Is that a gel, or is that, in fact, maybe a fountain?
I do have fountain pens, but I prefer ballpoint.
Okay, because I can't stop thinking about a $200 pen.
I didn't bring it with me.
Thank God. I wouldn't be able to hold it. My hands would shake too much to write.
Eric says step 4 kicked his ass right into reality.
I honestly didn't have a problem with step 4. So I didn't have, like again, I love talking about myself. It's my favorite topic.
That's why we brought you here.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you for clearing that up, Fred.
And so like telling someone like all this stuff, which is what we kind of do anyway. There's always that saying, there's before, during, and after the meeting is 3 parts of it. And when you asked earlier about the old timers, I'm gonna, one very specific who had a very big impact on my life. a guy by the name of George F. who succumbed to cancer 2013 or 14. Three old timers from my fellowship passed, and you know, two were cancer and one was from a motorcycle accident. But George was part of the Friday night meeting that I still go to, and he was this. I say this big, but he was like this short, older Italian guy who would pick up cigarette butts with a stick. Excuse me, that had a nail on the end of it. So while everyone's figuring out they're going bowling or doing this or doing that and blah blah blah, I would hang out in the parking lot with him, and he would pick up cigarette butts, and I would we would just talk, right? And he didn't live far from me either. He lived over in Normandy, so I would go stop over there on occasion, help him out with whatever. And I learned more about how to be like a real responsible adult, right? And we can talk about all this stuff that's like program-ish, right? But like really like broke it down for me on how I interact like a real man. Between him and my father, like they both had and my brothers too had like a huge impact with that. But he had a huge impact on my early sobriety. And I forget why I got into that question.
No, because I'd asked you about it. That clicked for somebody very close to me.
Yeah.
Junior behind me, he really enjoyed talking to the older heads, and that's when he finally found a group that he felt comfortable with.
Yeah.
Because he shopped around, and that's what we always tell people to do. I mean, if you don't enjoy the first group you get into, find another one, and then you will find one that works for you, that's a better fit for you. And it was really shocking to us that the one that was a good fit for him was with the older heads, and they really just struck true with him. They helped him immensely.
I think I always gravitated towards older people. Just like when I was a kid, like I said, when I was growing up and I was getting into using drugs and the drugs that they were doing, although it was past their time with it, that's what I got into. Mm-hmm. And like when I was the baby, so there was always a huge age difference, and following them around or the other guys in the neighborhood, like okay, that's that. But even after that, like when I got into using and drinking and stuff, like that's I got to hook up with them and the person we were discussing earlier, and then whenever I got sober, it just kind of made sense that they kind of push you in the right direction, and I don't know, it's been life changing ever since, and they would just teach me little things, and I being able to still apply that today. Like sometimes I don't even realize it, but like I realize that they were doing what they were doing to get another day, and now it stuck. So now it's my turn to try to do the same thing, and that's what the fellowship comes down to. It doesn't matter if we're because we talk about 12 steps, but it started with 6, but it really just started with the concept of like one addict or one alcoholic helping another. To get another day, we can talk about it, go through this, and this is what we do, and that just reduces our anxieties or whatever for that day, and just helps me get along.
I have somebody that is anonymous, wanting to know maybe if you could identify the steps briefly, maybe for people who don't know them and are listening.
Okay. Let me pull them up. So step 1 is. Admitted to sorry.
Take your time.
This is a man that can recite the big book.
Yeah.
Page by page.
Step 1 was we admitted we were powerless over alcohol or drugs, that our lives had become unmanageable. So what that comes down, again, I said this a little bit earlier, but for many of us, it's actually recognizing that we have this issue with drinking or using drugs or gambling. I'm a terrible gambler. I still try that on occasion, but I'm miserable at it. That our lives have become unmanageable. And my take on step 1 is really that big part of like recognizing unmanageability. Like sometimes I just completely don't see it. But that's where taking a look back at things and realizing that things were unmanageable. And two is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Is it for some of us, it's, it turns into a religious thing, For me, it wasn't. Again, I was brought up, and it's still a very religious house. To me, it just wasn't that. I still say how I was very blessed. I went all through Catholic school, but it really didn't become a religious thing for me. However, that gentleman Bruce did ask me. He said, "Do you believe that this worked for me?" And he was talking about the 12-step fellowship, and I said, "Yes." He's like, "Well, that means it could work for you." So for me, that was a power greater than myself, So with three, I made a decision to turn my will over to the care of our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. And for me, that became trusting in that, following with the 12-step fellowship and doing the things they tell me to do, that my life will get better. Four, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Now, you'll hear a lot of people talk about this is where they gave up or whatever. And this is where you make a list of the people you have harmed, the people you have resentments, and not even just people. Who or what you harmed, what your resentments are, sexual conduct, all kinds of stuff goes on there. And you make a list of that, and you say who you harmed, what you did. You also put in there, what was your part in it. And some of that, like some of the resentments that I had, that I thought I really had no part in, realizing that like I really did have a part in it. Expectations. As I was saying, I think it's expectation is a resentment waiting or something along those lines. And sometimes having expecting that this was the way things were supposed to be was not really fair to some people. And not that it was anything major, but like when we talk about today, very often in treatment and clinical, about that the gateway drug isn't always alcohol or marijuana, that trauma could be the gateway. And when we talk about trauma, how our reaction to something, which really it cannot be. I'm going to tell you one very specific thing. I was supposed to my parents made me I was in Scouts. I was okay at that, but they made me play sports, and I sucked. I hated it, right?
But you were an athletic supporter.
Yes, I am one. And so I played baseball for Parkwood, and my mom had something else, and so I had to walk home, which isn't that far because I walked to school at St. Anselm's, right? And but like I was like, oh my gosh, she left me, she forgot it, and like I still remember that, right? So not that it had a huge impact on my life, but what it tells me is that I had this traumatic response experience to something, and what it tells me is how many other people experience something in their lives, and we don't realize that it's really having an effect on them on a long term. And with that, so my expectation was that, so what was my part in that is that I expected her that she was going to pick me up. And even though it wasn't that far from my school, showing me that I do have parts to play in all these situations. So in step 5, which is admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. So steps 4 and steps 5 go together. And in step 4, you write all this stuff down. And on step 5, you go over it. And it's usually your sponsor, but again, some of us have issues with that or whatever. They say you can go talk to your priest or whomever, but as long as you with someone else. And for me, it was after I did such, I had to go and have a quiet hour and just think about it. Excuse me. I keep burping. I'm drinking water. And but we
relax. We're all friends here.
It's probably that Taco Bell.
I wish.
It starts coming out the other end. This is a very airtight room. I'm just telling you now.
And but a big part of that is going through that And again, I'm going to reiterate it that steps 4 and 5 is where many people falter because of the fear of telling these other people what we did. And for me, that wasn't. I wasn't fearful with that. Like I'll tell you on any Friday night after the meeting. So, but then step 6 and 7 kind of go together. 6 is we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. And 7, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. And step 6 is really just saying that we're ready. And step 7 means humbly ask Him, which is praying about it. And I'm not like a huge prayer person, but like I do I don't even say a name or anything. I'm really just kind of talking to myself. But but I definitely was ready for some of these things to change. And for me, if it's not a huge prayer thing, and again, living in a solution, had to do active things to make to combat those different things. So that's how I kind of worked through that. So 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make them. Oh, I should also add, step 6 and 7, a lot of those character defects we pull from the discussion that we had with our sponsor using step 4, and then the discussion during step 5 is where we come up with the list of our character defects. And then we pray over them. But then you take that step 4 and make a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. And this is where like some people get scared of that 4 and 5, but this is where work really starts, because then you go into step 9 and say made a direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And that's when you got to go to people and just say, hey, this is what I did. I was totally wrong. What could I do to make it right? And what did I leave out? And it's not like, it's hard because like I heard someone say in a meeting or very early sobriety, there was a woman there, and I guess her husband, I don't know what the hell he did, but they weren't obviously into a happy campers. And she said that I'm tired of it. She's like, I'm tired of hearing sorry. Sorry is a 5-letter word that means nothing, right? So it's not going and just saying, hey, I'm sorry. You really have to offer to say, like, what can I do to make this right? And the real big part is, what did I leave out? Because I can't tell you how many times I've seen something one way, and I'm so clouded by my judgment or justification of that situation that I totally don't even see it in some kind of other light. But really, some people find some ways about it. So you go and you do that. And then, so the amends process is a huge thing. And then, so step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. So continue to take personal inventory. So we went through our steps, or not all the steps, but we started making amends. And so what we do on a regular basis is just take a look at ourselves and say, am I living right? Am I doing the right things, for the right reasons? And when I'm not, making it right away as much as possible. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Now, this is where a lot of people get into meditation and prayer and meditating, sitting there for half an hour with no noise going on is so difficult for me. I can't even tell you. But I have personally found other ways that quiet. So you got to think about why you're doing this. It's the quiet upstairs here, and for me, tinkering, to sit at my workbench and to be tinkering with something.
Tinkering. Well, that's a word you don't hear much anymore. That's a quite dated phrase, but
well, in the meth world, we call it Frankensteining, because if I was getting high, I'd be taking all these wires over here apart and seeing what it does here and there, And but I really like
tinkering's good.
I used to restore old bicycles, and I could take every piece, like every spoke and take the hub apart and take it apart, clean it, polish it, put it back together. Is the quietest that this brain has ever been. So I kind of work it in that direction. It's almost like a fidget spinner if I'm like focusing on something else.
Cool.
And then step 12. having had a spiritual awakening as a result of the steps, we try to carry the message to addicts or alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. All right. And the big book talks about having a white light experience. And I can tell you, I've never been on the road to Damascus, so I've never been hit with a lightning bolt. And so I've never had like that, right? But I hear of some that are called of like the educational variety. And I've definitely had experiences that sometimes are very powerful and can be very emotional that have come from working the steps in my life, but also living like a good person and helping others out, that have really affected me and long term. And so I've had a spiritual awakening in that direction. I try to carry the message to other people as much as possible. Do I do that for work? Yes, but the way it was put to me that my job is not paid 12-step work. So, but I also get involved. I still stay involved with the 12-step fellowship, and when I can, I get involved with that there. Plus, also, I can't tell you how many times I've gone to pick someone up, and I've taken them to detox or to rehab, or taken someone to their first meeting back, like all that kind of stuff. Someone did that for me, so I'm willing to do that for someone else. And then the last of it is the practices, principles in all of our affairs. It also says in the one reading that right after that, there's nothing, not one of us can do perfect adherence to all of these things. And I wish I could do practices, principles, and every one of my affairs, but I don't know what that is.
We have a caller calling
But I tried.
in.
Hello, caller.
Hi, I'm Joey Bag of Donut Hole.
Hi, Joey Bag of Donut Hole. How are you?
What's up, Mr. Garzoni?
Okay. Doing fine. Yeah, you were talking about the steps, and my hardest one was step 4 for me. I went through the steps 2 times, but the first time it was like, well, what am I doing? I don't know how to do this. And I give it like analogy, like symbolism, like the pen was the keys and the paper was the car. And this is my first time driving, trying to go through all these events. But I needed a driver instructor, and that was my sponsor. So he helped me get through the steps, and things that I was hesitant about, he would help me through. And if he thought it was like something that wasn't quite clear, he would ask me questions about it. Not in a demeaning way or a yelling way, but he would say, like, what about this when, you put this down? And is this how you really feel? And stuff like that. And gradually, just like learning to drive, I got, it took some time, but I finally got the rhythm, the clarity of mind to put down how I really felt. And, whose fault was it? Mostly me. But, at first it was like, these people hurt me. And then you get to the part where, well, what did you have to do with it? Then the real, like, truth came out. It's like, well, maybe it wasn't them. It was more likely me. And when I did my steps the second time, it was great. I mean, I knew what I had to do, and I knew what I was doing that time around. It was so much easier. And the other step that I practice is, I think it's step 10. You take your daily inventory and you make sure you didn't, hurt anybody or mess anybody over. And if you did, get ready to make an amends to them. And as far as is the 23rd next week?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny. I talked to my cousin today about doing this. So I'm 99% sure I'll be on next Friday.
Okay. Just send me a nice picture of yourself so I
Bob
can make
volunteered
a
to
banner.
play
Nice
canasta.
picture of myself. I need your address and the phone number there.
Well, you know the phone number.
And Larry, Bob volunteered to play canasta with your uncle that night just to keep him occupied. Touch base with Bob.
Well, I hope you can join us. Just let me know. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
we really, we understand, if you can't, but yeah, we'd really love to have you on, Larry. You got a lot to offer.
So y'all use this phone number to call you?
Yep.
Okay. Then you give me the address and all.
I certainly
I'll
will.
start making plans.
I
All
certainly.
right, thank
We,
you.
we can't
All
give it
right.
over the air due to the fact we're in a secret underground bunker,
It's 1313
Mockingbird Lane.
Bird Lane, yeah, brother, yeah, okay. Yeah, tell Lily I said hello. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you,
All right.
Larry.
Larry.
You're always awesome.
Okay. Okay, talk to you later.
All
Back to
right.
the show.
Now, Eric explains his 12-step as well with allow, aware, annoy. Where's the other ones? Adjust, amend, advise, alignment, announcing. And I think that's it.
There's also like there's a list. So we all know about the 12 steps, and then there's the 12 traditions. The 12 steps are your personal, and then 12 traditions are like among the group. But I was also taught that like the 12 step is also about how you interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's further in, there's the 12 concepts, which has to do with service.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also 12 principles that are behind each step. I
Right.
forget what they are.
Right.
It's nothing I ever really paid too much attention to.
Mm-hmm.
And other things, but I know some people really think about it. They keep it simple. They focus on
Right.
those principles behind it.
Now, Deborah asks, is it true you should not have a relationship for up to a year after you get out of rehab? Part 1. Part 2 is, what if you were married? Do you get divorced for a year and then go to Las Vegas to see Elvis? And 3, my husband came home and we had to relearn each other again. We got through it. Now we have our son in recovery.
Well, there is that suggestion, and that suggestion, not only do you hear it in clinical and treatment, but you also hear it in the 12-step rooms from multiple fellowships. And I see Tracy D was commenting there. I hope she's still listening, but her group of women has like some of the greatest recovery I've ever seen in like this group of people who like call themselves out on the other one's bullshit and all that kind of good stuff, right? And like, are they gonna put up like? They don't put. Yeah, she says she's still here. Hi, Trace. They're not going to put up with it, right? Because you know why? Because it's not like someone decided, like, I don't want this dude to go out with some chick for a year. No, like that's not why that's ever been come up with. What has happened though, is that over years, because you remember this all started, with AA in 1935. But like even before then, the Oxford group or whatever, that like over these years of all this going on, that especially after they started with like some of the treatment facilities, that they see people go through this and then they meet the love of their life in detox, right? And like those socks with the little sticky things on the bottom are really sexy. And that they meet the love of their life in detox, and then they go out and they're going to save one another. And then one of them ends up, drinking or using, and it kind of leads it into the other one. And you got to really think about, like, so, I mean, every time I was in rehab, not every time, but, like, most of the times I was in rehab, like, I was just there, it's just because I had to be there. And I left and I started getting, going to some meetings and some stuff because that's what they told you to do. But I hung around with, like, people I shouldn't have been hanging around with. And eventually, like, I went and did what I was going to do, because if it's there and I'm not properly in a good spiritual foundation, I'm more likely to make that bad decision. and the same thing comes to relationships. Like if if you're involved with someone who's not really there, like not really stable, and they go and they do whatever, there's a high likability that you may make that bad decision as well. So that's why it's suggested. Now, has there been some people who were successful with it? Absolutely. Was I successful with it? Absolutely not. So that's that one. There was two
Okay.
other questions with that.
Yes. I gave them all to you because I couldn't remember them. So
Something to do with Elvis. If it's got to do with Elvis,
right.
then yes.
Should she divorce for a year and then go to Las Vegas and
No.
That
no?
was a joke.
But I will.
This is a serious show, damn it. No.
I will say this: there's a reason why there's a chapter in the big book that says "to the wives," right? Because it's there to deal with this, and we can really say now the significant others, but so it's for the significant others, and really there's another one in another chapter, and it's the family afterward, and both of them kind of say. And this is one of the things when I was saying earlier about like, in the steps of having to understand that we do have a part, even when we didn't think we did, right? And like growing up for me, I was the youngest, and there's a huge age difference. There's almost 10 years between me and the next brother, so they were all out doing their thing, and my dad's working this, that, whatever, and like I had a lot of family resentment, and that I had to understand that like I was a part of that, right? And that in those chapters it says we have to understand that they are sick people. In hindsight now, having some recovery and having had a change in spirituality, I do understand like I had to look at it in a different way. I'm going to tell you, though, that there's a song that really made me, that there's a line of the song that really hit me like a ton of bricks with it, and it's from Nirvana. And in Nirvana, I forget what song he says, I try so hard to have a father, but still I had a dad, right? And what that lyric kind of says is that, like, all right, well, what's a father? A father's like the more formal term of what our parents are, right? Or what our parental, our male parental figure is. But what's a dad? It's more colloquial, that it's not so rigid and whatnot. So the expectation that what Kurt Cobain was saying there is that he had the expectation of like we should have been doing this, or it should have been different. He put the expectation there, as being the key word. So like with that, like so if I had these expectations of what my parents or my family should be doing, that's automatically set me up for a resentment. And with having a significant other who is now newly sober, the best solution that anyone can give you is A, getting involved with a support group, and B, reading those two chapters.
Yeah. Now, my question to you is, if a parent comes to you, what advice would you give to them to help their loved one into recovery? What would you say is the best?
I mean,
I know we can't do it for them. We can't make them, but what would be the one thing that you would tell a parent?
the thing about making them, I debate that back and forth. There's a lot of direction heading towards, and we kind of hinted on this earlier with harm reduction versus abstinence and
Right.
And for me it was just abstinence, but like I remember going to rehab back in the early mid 90s, and it was a big thing was like tough love. And like I'm more of a proponent towards that, right? And like sometimes when I hear from parents, I just want to say, kick them the F out, make them have to go and learn the hard way. Here's the thing that joins every single person in recovery is that we had this rough journey, You know, so if they haven't had a rough journey, they're going to have one eventually wherever. So,
Right.
But if a parent or anyone were to reach out, my first suggestion to them is like for them to go to a meeting of a support group for themselves, but have your kid go to a meeting. Has he ever or she ever been to a meeting? You know,
Right.
And then if they're willing to do that, but there's also like fellowships are this is what's really kind of good. They have like mentoring programs that have people that will call and say like, hey, like if you want, I'll come take you off for a meeting, which is something we've been working with at Livergreen over the past couple months. That we now have this availability to bring mentors, quote unquote, and for the people that are in treatment, but they're also willing to be there, you know. And really, like a lot of time, my best suggestion for anyone is, it's really to push them in that way, because you're going to head in that direction anyway. Whether, if you go to treatment or you go to wherever, you're going to get some kind of exposure to one of these support groups, and that's where, people can calm down, especially like, I think my mom prayed me sober, at one point, but like I really feel bad for the families.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of times like there's no real set answer you can give.
Right.
But to get them to be able to voice their opinion and just talk about what they're going through is at least a start to the process.
Now, here comes a person into treatment, into admissions, and you just happen to bump into them. What would the one thing you tell them?
I usually hit them with the circle game, right? Just to see.
I don't know if I want to hear this.
The circle game, like this. I say, you look, right? So a lot of times I do that just like to break the ice. And I think, you can't talk about it now anyway.
You can talk about it.
No, I can't. So a lot of times I'll do that, and it's either they're going to hate me or it opens up a little bit of a dialogue. And how I really kind of handle a lot of that is really to just start talking. Like, they don't want to hear anything I'm effing saying anyway, right?
Okay.
So I just start just going, just asking them, nothing too crazy, but just trying to get them conversing a little bit. But each one, I kind of look at it in a different kind of way, and you try to like. I always bring a little bit of humor into it just because it kind of loosens someone up a little bit and then get them talking. But then you have people like me who just want to shut the F up anyway. So then I'll get that one. And what you try to do is you just try to bring in what they're talking about. And I do this all the time, and I tell them, give them like some kind of suggestion of what they could read or whatever, just to try and have them focus. They're not going to, a lot of times they won't remember the next day anyway. Just to try to give them something to look forward to.
Right.
Whether it's looking forward to an activity that we're going to do, or whether, this is who you could talk to, or like many different things, just to try and bring something up there so that they can try and remember it later.
Right. Now, what would you tell somebody that's getting ready to leave?
I do. I talk to everyone when they're in their third week. I get all the patients in their third week, and I tell them. Sometimes I read over it's a pamphlet from one of the fellowships that talks about having fun in recovery, and about how. And what I do is I tell them, like, I bombard them with all this information, and I kind of give it to them in. I'm sure you've seen the alumni schedule that I make up. But what it kind of does is just let them know that, like, this is far from, like, boring, and there's, like, all this kind of cool stuff that we do. But I always kind of, like, make them know that, like, you have to make the decision to do these. Kind of like that third step says, I made the decision, right? And I made the decision that, like, drinking or drugging is not an option. I also have to make the decision on a regular basis that I'm going to do these things, because, like, a lot of times I don't want, like, I don't want to do whatever. Like, on a Saturday night, like, I'd just rather just watch TV, right? Making a decision to go and do some of these different things, or making a decision to go out to a meeting, and getting involved with these activities, and letting them know that, like, it's far from. It's not. You're not sitting in the 12-step meeting every night of the week. Well, some people do, But like, there's a lot more to it.
Right,
You can do all
right.
these different things that normal quote unquote people do.
Now, what about the parents when it comes to, oh, they want to come home, but we don't want them? What would your advice be to?
Good angle there, Bob.
The suggestion is always a recovery house, and I didn't go this time. I didn't go. It really kind of wasn't an option. And that guy Bruce I talked about earlier, I'll never forget talking with him. And he owns some recovery houses, right? And I was like, well, I didn't have that luxury. And he's like, it's not a luxury. I said, I get that. Like, I didn't really mean it was like a luxurious house, but I meant that like I didn't have that option to really make that choice, especially for younger people. And how I relate it to like patients who are or alumni that are going and have that, they're going to go or whatever. I relate it to like I had all these chances when I was younger to go down the shore for like the summer or whatever. I never did that. Like I smoked pot in Parkwood, and I dropped acid at Bryn Athyn Cathedral, right? But like these people are like going down the shore and doing this and that, and like I said, I'm like, damn, I should have went and did that stuff, And it's the same kind of concept. Like, you have this opportunity. Yeah, it sucks. You're like, there's 3 to a bedroom or whatever. But that it's only a temporary thing.
Right.
And ready. So when I went to long-term treatment when I was 23, I went to rehab. I had to stay for a year and a half, and was 9-month inpatient. So when I hear people crying over 28 days and they have to go to recovery house for 90 days. I don't feel bad for them whatsoever. There's a lot more to it. But really, like when I went to that long.
Good night, Donna.
Good night, Donna.
Bye, Don.
Come
Bye,
back
Don.
again. We'll be here every Friday.
And thank you for tomorrow. I'm gonna send you a Dunkin' gift card, by the way. But just give you the heads up, so you might want to get the app. But it really had some like long term, like I still remember. I heard from a guy that I was there with, and this was 96 to 98 that I was there, and a guy who was actually in my group, and I looked for him on Facebook multiple times, and then I'm like, I know that's him. I seen the picture of him, and he but I sent a message, and he like wouldn't accept it, whatever. Bye, Trace. And
I'm making a paella tonight, Bob.
he accepted it. It was just really kind of cool talking with him, but like it had long term effects to the
Thanks
point
for stopping in, Tracy. Come again.
where they have affected my life, and and giving up on that. Like we talk about in the rooms, like don't leave before the miracle happens, and a lot of times, we can try to talk that into them, but it really comes down to like they had to make the decision themselves. However, again, if they didn't have if mom and dad weren't letting them home and that was their only option, I'm a firmer believer in that.
And we have 5 minutes, 6 minutes left.
Is Dougie
So
Fresh on?
if you have any questions, please ask them now. Do you have somebody coming in afterwards? Okay. But I just want to put out there, Christy, yes, John and his gifts. He has wonderful gifts.
Oh, wait, no. What did I gave her? It was
Bathroom putting.
No. I got her. No, I actually got her like a cool. I think it was a necklace. But then I gave her warming jelly. Like I went to the dollar store and just picked off all the weirdest stuff. It was warming jelly. Was it potted meat or Vienna sausages? And like a hair wrap.
I got
The gifts that keep on giving.
the potty golf set. That was interesting. And I just got a calendar the other day, and the first person, and it was anonymous. So the first thing that John Cronball,
I can't.
but it
take
ended
credit.
up
Meat
to
in
my
a
sister.
can.
It was my sister.
Meat in a can. that
Meat
was
in a
it.
can.
I did one recently. A family that grew up across the street, and they had 3 sons, and I was friends with them all. And the youngest one, he died in a car accident back in 2001. And the father, who he used to take us to Phillies games and all that kind of stuff. He had something on his Facebook about something with a man bun recently, and so I immediately went on Amazon and ordered him a clip-on man bun and sent it to the house anonymously.
A good look for me. How would I look with a man bun on?
I think
Would it
it'll
make me
work.
look fat?
We'll have to get a gray one though.
And Bob, I think we might be replacing my cooking show with John's cat reading show. I think we're going to be running
We're
that
gonna
show
bring
out of
some
here. So anybody
cats
with
in.
cats out there.
And we
tell
got
you-
enough strays around
And John will
here.
be giving away catnip to the first 5 subscribers.
Oh, by the way, I also sent someone catnip, right? Because he took in his older cat, and then he didn't say anything. So then a week or so later, I'm like, hey, did you give the cat the catnip? He's like, oh, I threw that out. I thought it was from China or whatever, how they were sending the seeds out last year. So he just threw it out. But the volunteering that I'm doing now, Christ, they're doing 1,000 dinners a night, and I was like, this is work. I'm not used to this.
Eric says, I love when the newbies ask about the spiritual awakening and I tell them it already happened. You missed it. Laugh out loud. And then I tell them it was them asking when it happened is when it happened.
Bob's bringing up I can't take credit for that. I wish I could, but I did steal that and have signed other people up. So people who are very, very right, I sign them up for left flyers, and people who are very left, I sign them up for right flyers and other things coming in the mail. And
Yes, Larry, that was medical catnip. I heard it. It was for medicinal purposes. The cat had some anxiety issues.
I will tell you, right? So I said, I was a late bloomer, and I was, getting into this and getting into that, and I also bought a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook back in the early '90s, and it said you can smoke banana peels, so I smoked banana peels. It said you can make meth by bluing a soft coal, and that really burned. And they said you can smoke catnip, and I worked at a pet shop, and I stole organic catnip, and that didn't get me high either.
Oops.
But they're catnip suppositories I had read in the book
Christy,
that
thanks
I
for
read.
coming. Hope you can come back again.
See you, Chris.
Thank you.
Would you like to discuss motorcycle thing coming
Oh
up?
yeah. So
Before we hang up,
a quick plug. One, anyone who would like to come to the alumni meeting, which will be this Sunday at 6 p.m. It will probably be in the Chapman Building parking lot. So bring a chair. We'll be giving out some kind of raffle, whatever. I would say we will be giving out hoodies, but we didn't come up with the color until yesterday. So the new ones are going to be, the zip ups are going to be these one. I had it on earlier. We're going to zip ones are going to be this gray. See the gray, and then there's going to be pullover Davy ones.
I won.
For the Ride for Recovery that's going to be on Sunday, June 27th. It is not going to end at Living Green because we can't have that many people on the property.
Right.
We're trying to keep it as a lower number. It's going to end at Core Creek Park, Pavilions 1 and 2. It will be free. It won't be as huge as all the normal happenings.
Right.
Lori signed Pap up to DJ. I don't know if he knows it yet or not.
That's right. I'll be there live and in the flesh there, people.
We're going to have either Byler's Donuts if they get back to me. If not, Dunkin' Donuts coming with I think 24 boxes of Joe and 24 dozen donuts. So it'll be coffee donuts for an hour, and then a 12-step meeting and some public information tables. But it's better than no Ride for Recovery like last
Right.
year. So.
Right.
Right.
It's a geared
Will
we're
there
getting back to
Be
normality.
a motorcycle giveaway or
No,
not this year?
I don't think we'll ever do that again. I don't.
No.
You can't quote me on that, but
Damn it. I was going to win this year.
okay. Well.
Will there be a 50-50?
Yeah, we'll be a 50-50. You can give me $100 for motorcycle raffles, and I'll make a raffle up, and we'll donate your $100.
The man is a genius.
But it is a good a good
Good night, Liz.
thing. Liz Knight, love you, girl. She's from Kentucky.
I know.
She's my Kentuckian.
I know another Liz.
Yeah.
That's
Uh,
right,
no.
Bob. It's Pappy
I'm
P
thinking
and the
of the other
boss
one.
jock
There's a-
with the boss chick.
Liz Donahue was here earlier. I'm not sure if she's still in there or not.
Not sure. But anything else coming up for Living Grin?
May 2nd, we're going to play in the Phoenix. Phoenix is like a really kind of cool, like, workout, like, health and recovery group. So we're going to go, Team Livergren's going to go play in the, and I don't know if it's a tournament or not, but some kind of
I used to
kickball
ride
game.
Betty, and I used to race motorcycles.
What else we got going on? Back to Livergren Day is going to be October. We were discussing that. We're starting a planning meeting on that sometime in October. I think that's it.
Will you need a DJ in October?
I don't know. Maybe. I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
That's really kind of up in the air. The first meeting is going to be May 20th.
Thanks, Eric.
And I will announce this.
My midlife crisis.
Not sure the date on it yet, but the Alumni Olympics that we did a couple years ago, I think Christy probably left already. If not, I hope she comes up for the face-to-face meeting. Christy does what I do for another facility. And we are going to do like intramurals, so it's going to be, we're going to have a cornhole tournament for Livergren
Oh, I like
alumni
that.
in pairs, and whoever's the winner is going to go play against Retreat, Malvern, RCA, a bunch of other places. So,
Awesome.
Cool.
yeah, I'm kind of looking forward
Awesome.
to that.
And Betty Ann, I know Jim is riding in the Ride for Recovery, and I'm riding bitch with them. So, yeah.
You won't find me doing that, but
But I just want to thank you for coming
No, thanks for
out
having me.
and
Good, John. It was a
And-
pleasure. Yeah,
sharing the 12 steps and your story. I hope that it helps a lot of people. Even if it helps one, we did something right. We will be back here next Friday, possibly with Larry.
and we're going to need a good picture, Larry.
Yes, we'll need a good picture. If you have a Metallica shirt, my favorite band, so you might want to wear that for your photo. But if you guys are struggling and you need help or you need to talk to anybody, please feel free to give me a call. My number is 267-737-8031. I am here to listen if you need somebody to talk to, if you need to vent, cry, scream, whatever. I'm always available at that number.
And I'm available for bar mitzvahs, anything. Or it's been a slow DJ year.
Right. I'm
To say the
trying
least.
to get someone
Have you had
in
any?
here to
have
discuss.
you had any of yours?
No, I haven't had a gig since last March.
I'm trying to get somebody in here to talk recovery houses to help
I got 3
family members out and
year.
such.
Wonderful.
So, guys, have a great week. See you next Friday. Hope you guys, stay calm.
Yeah, and thanks for tuning in.
remember the
Tell your
hope.
friends and neighbors about the show. Anybody might be interested. I mean, we
Okay.
try to get as many viewers as we can.
Oh, and Bob, thanks for showing up for the whole show, unlike somebody else I know. Everybody, have a good Friday. Have a good week.
Remember,
Peace out.
recovery works if you work it. Peace out.
Deuces.